All right, hi everyone. So I just wanted to go over a couple things that you should be thinking about when you are writing or revising essay three. So if you turned in a late rough draft, or you didn't turn in a rough draft and you didn't get feedback, or you got feedback on your rough draft but want a little more guidance, or maybe there's something that I'm saying to everyone that I didn't exactly say on yours, this is what you need to listen to really quickly. So the first thing is, make sure if there's anything in your paper, I don't care what it is, a quote from someone else, a fact, a statistic, a number, figure, anything that didn't develop right out of your own brain, that you had to in any way look up or learn from someone else, you need to cite it in some way. Now, we didn't go over sources too much in class. You did a journal that had some source looking up. We talked about sources a little bit, but we didn't thoroughly go into source citation. You're really going to do a lot of source citation in English 112. But the basic rule is for MLA, in parentheses after the material that you cited, you need to put the author's last name, a space, and then the page or paragraph number that you got the information from. If it's an online source, you just give the paragraph number. So it was, in paragraph 1 or whatever. If there's no author's name, then give a shortened version of the article title in quotation marks. So you'd have your parenthesis, quotation, short title, quotation, space, page number, or paragraph number, close parentheses. And then you're in punctuation. Your period goes outside the parentheses. I'm not going to be super picky on if the sources are cited correctly. I'm going to be super picky on, is there something that needs a citation that doesn't have one? So just try to make an attempt. Remember, we talked about plagiarism at the beginning of the semester, so just don't do it. It's super easy to avoid. I don't care if you use sources, that's fine. Just make sure you're citing them. But the other thing is, make sure that most of the paper is yours, your own ideas, your own examples. If you use source material, I want you to take a minute and then explain why that is important. Why did you grab that from another source? Why does the audience need to know this information? Or what do you think is significant about it? So don't just throw a whole bunch of quotes or paraphrase information. Remember, you need to cite paraphrase stuff too. Don't just throw that all in your paper and say, okay, there, that's it, that's my paper, and it's really just copy and paste of stuff you found on the internet. Because this isn't copy and paste 111, this is English 111. So it really does need to be your ideas that are the bulk of the paper. Make sure you have good topic sentences, that your paragraphs flow, that everything's really developed. If you are worried about meeting any length requirements or paragraph development requirements, make sure you're giving really specific examples and that you're elaborating on the examples. And watch for those issues of tone like we've talked about all semester. Don't use contractions. Don't use second persons, no, you, your. You technically could use first person, but you want to use it very sparingly. If you want to use a personal example, you absolutely can, but don't try to make the entire paper just personal examples or anything like that. Make sure that you're making a claim that you're arguing the whole time. It's not compare contrast. It's not persuasive. Okay, remember, so if you need to go back and look at that material on persuasive versus argument, do that. But I've seen some good things in some rough drafts, and I've seen some things that need people to work on. The Writing Center still has appointments. I'm actually going to be putting up a schedule at the end of this week for any Writing Center appointments next week. I just have to see if any of my consultants want to work, because if not, it's going to be me doing Writing Center appointments. So hopefully by the end of this week, you will see a Writing Center schedule for next week. So if for this class or another class you need help, you can do that. As long as you are making an attempt to cite any sources that you use. And if you didn't use any sources, that's great. You don't have to use any sources. I'm fine with that. But as long as you're making an attempt to cite sources within your paper, you don't have to work too much on a works cited page. Just put some information about the sources on a page and don't worry too much about formatting or anything like that. Another thing, while I have you here really quick, you guys who did Journal 9, there was some good work done on that. And, it was one where you really had to go through quite a few steps to finish it, and you guys did really good. One thing that I want to point out is the last thing that you had to do was you had to click the peer-reviewed button and have the page refresh and see if the article that you picked was still there. And there was a reason for that, and I want you guys to know the reason, because this is really important. It's going to help you immensely in English 112. If you found a source that disappeared when you hit the peer review button, that means it was not peer reviewed, which means it's not a scholarly source. So sources like that are ones that usually professors ask you to use sparingly. I know when I teach 112, I have a source limit, minimum amount of sources students have to use for their paper. And of that source limit, most of the sources have to be peer reviewed. So if your article disappeared when you hit the peer reviewed button, that means you're, for whatever reason, being attracted to the popular, the non-scholarly sources. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Usually popular sources that you find on a database like that are pretty decent. But basically peer reviewed means that, let's say I wrote a paper about film. I would submit it to a publication where they would have a group of 3 or more people who specialize in whatever I wrote on, and they would read it and they would say, yes, this is quality work. It offers something insightful into the field. It's well done. It's well researched. And we approve it to be published as is, academia in the subject. So it goes through a very strict kind of screening process to even get published. Whereas something that's in a popular source, say a periodical, it might go through a very basic editing process where someone's really looking at mostly like proofreading things like grammar, punctuation, and it doesn't really get the research criteria that someone publishing in a peer-reviewed source has to fit. So that's why I asked that question. And that's why if you do have to find peer-reviewed or scholarly sources in English 112, don't forget that peer-reviewed button. As soon as you start searching, make sure you click that button, because if you click that, you're going to find peer-reviewed sources right off the bat, and it's just going to make things a lot easier. If you don't click it, you might find a whole bunch of sources that sound really great, but then you find out they're popular and you can't use all of them. Also with abstracts, I asked you about those. You guys were right on. It's really helpful to have an abstract, because what an abstract is, it's a very short paragraph saying, this is what this paper is about. So if you are doing research, it's really great if you find articles that have abstracts, and most peer-reviewed ones do. Because instead of opening an article that's 20 pages and starting to read a few pages and realizing, well, this is not working, you can read the little abstract that's just, 3, 4, maybe 8 sentences at the most. And you can, it tells you, like, here is exactly what this article is about. It's a short summary of the article. So if you want to even attempt to use that article, or sometimes, because sometimes the journal name sounds promising and the title sounds promising. And then once you start reading the source, you're like, no, that was misleading. So an abstract can help you avoid that like misleading thing and have you reading extra stuff you don't need to. So again, don't forget you have an extension on essay 3. It's now not due until the Thursday of final exam week. So that's May 7th at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. That's when you have to turn in your journal. If you turn in or excuse me, your essay 3. You also have to turn in journal 10, which is your final exam, by that date. And I posted in the Blackboard announcement stuff about, will I accept things late? Will I not? Make sure you read that very carefully, because what I put in that announcement, there are absolutely no exceptions. Since I posted that announcement, it doesn't matter what you email me. You know, there's no exceptions on if I'll accept things after times or not. So look at that. Know what I'll take, what I won't take. Anyway, good luck. If you haven't made a writing center appointment, I really recommend that you do. You can either get help on something that I specifically commented on, or get help on something that you have noticed is a recurring comment through the semester, or something that you are just worried about. And that's about it. So I will be posting some more stuff for you guys, and I hope you all are hanging in there, not getting cabin fever, but I mean, I guess that's kind of where we all are right now. I hope you are watching some good movies and listening to some good music, and staying as healthy and happy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually as possible, whatever of those apply to you guys. All right. So I will talk to you later.